Welcome to How to Remediate PDF Forms. I'm your coordinator for distance education and digital accessibility, Lori. So let's get started. Today's objectives, we're going to go over how to add form fields in Acrobat Pro, set and verify form field properties, and check and adjust the form field tab order. When creating an accessible PDF form, you want to use the following steps to create the accessible PDF form. Create the form in Microsoft Word and export to untagged PDF. You may not have a Word version, which is okay. You can start in PDF. If you don't have the Word version, you'll start with step 3. If you do have the Word version, it is much easier to make it accessible in Word first before going into the PDF. We're not going to go over any of that part. The next, you'll add forms in Acrobat Pro, set and verify form field properties, and then check the form field tab order. These are the 3 things we're going to talk about today. After you've added all the form fields and you checked your form fields, then you want to add tags to the document and fine-tune reading order and tab order. We will not go over adding tags today. It's just a little bit too much, but I can always do that at a later point. One thing is, if you do start with a tagged PDF document, often it is recommended to delete the existing tags and then complete the rest of the steps. And the reason is because PDF does some weird things and messes stuff up, and then you'll have to do a lot of editing after the fact. And sometimes it's just easier to start with a fresh document, and that's why they recommend that. Okay, so what is meant by an untagged PDF? Tags are essentially how the screen reader reads the content, and that's why you have to tag the document. An untagged PDF means it doesn't have any of this information. So if a visually impaired user tried to access the document, they couldn't read anything because there's no tags. And that's why we have to tag the document, and that's why we want to make sure it's tagged correctly. All right. Here is where I'm going to exit out of there. To open up the tags in PDF or in Acrobat, you need to select the accessibility tags icon. And I'm trying to get this so you can see the text on the slide and the form on the right. Now, I have a document that's already open in Acrobat. And what they're talking about here is over here on this right-hand side. Now, you may not have the tags icon. Here it is in mine. By default, it's not there. So it may not be on yours. If it is, it's easy to add. You just right-click anywhere on that right pane and see here where it says accessibility tags. You just want to click it, and then it will appear. And it looks like this little pentagon. It looks like a tag there. Okay, so these are the tags. You want to check the tags and you want to delete them if they're not complicated. Now, these are not very complicated. You'll come into some forms where you'll have tons of them. One thing that is kind of a clue to get rid of them is, notice down here is your first, H4 means heading 4, and there's no heading 1 anywhere on the page. You always have to have a heading 1, so that kind of tells me that the tags are not very good. So to delete them, you can either right-click and select delete, or if you just select it, you can hit delete on your keyboard and you get rid of all the tags. And I can just X out of here to close that window. All right, next we're going to add form fields. When adding a form fields, you need to come over here on the left and select the All Tools. And then you may have a shorter menu here. Select View More to expand it, and you are looking for Prepare Form. And I always have trouble finding it. There it is, Prepare Form. Now, this Prepare Form, you notice that the form is actually displayed here. It will always display here. You can change the file if you need to. This is a box that is kind of confusing. This particular document does require signatures, so you would be tempted to select this. But never select this. There's some kind of a bug in the Acrobat. So, never select this button until they fix this bug. Next, you want to check that the auto detect form field is on. It should be on by default, but do just verify it does say on. And then you just hit this blue create form. If you've made any edits to your document, you do need to save it first. So I'll hit save. I'm going to replace what I already have. And then voila, it finds all, or not finds, it does its best to find all the form fields, and it tries to anticipate what type of field it is. And notice here on the right, it has a list. These are all the fields it identified. This, if you notice the forms, how they have this black and then the white text, and it gives these names and so forth. This is what's called forms editing mode. And on the right-hand side, you'll see that it says prepare a form. And this is how you know you're in forms editing mode. It has, all the different options, different form fields that you can add and so forth. It has a preview option down at the bottom. Don't worry about the send. And so, yeah, so that's how you know you're in the forms editing mode. First thing after it's been, after you've identified all these form fields, you want to delete any unnecessary fields, because sometimes it will identify things that either just don't make sense or things that are not even, it shouldn't even be a form field. So to delete them, just select and you can just hit delete on your keyboard. It's that simple to delete anything. You can also right click and select delete, and that just removes it from the form. A lot of times you will have to add some extra form fields. Like if you notice here where it says, are you a citizen? There are no form fields. So you need to add a form field. In order to add a form field, you need to make sure you are in a prepare a form mode. And then on the right-hand side, you can select whichever form component makes sense for this. For are you a U.S. citizen, yes or no, they can only answer one of those. So a radio button makes sense for this. So I'm going to select the radio button, and then notice the crosshairs and the little box there. So I can just select, put it where I would like it, and then just click left one time and it places there. And I'll do that for both the yes and the no. Now, to get out of this mode, you can either hit your escape button 2 times or come up to the select tool and hit that twice. Sometimes the one works, but I always do it twice just to make sure. So now I'm out of that. Notice that when I move my cursor around, I can't accidentally put another form field in there. And I want to show this. If you notice here over on the right-hand side, here are the 2 radio buttons that I put. If you notice over here in the fields, it put it at the bottom of my fields, and it also knew, because I was doing radio buttons, it automatically grouped them together. So if you have multiple radio buttons that you're doing, you just be aware of that it may group more than one together that you don't want to. All right, next up, the field properties. After you've added all your form fields, then you need to come back into each one and you need to set some properties. All right, you can open up by selecting and either right-clicking and going to properties, or you can just double-click and it will open up the properties. All the form fields will have a general tab, an appearance tab, and an options tab. These other ones, they're just dependent on the different form fields. The general tab, that is, I would say, the most important one. You have a name and a tooltip. The name is what will benefit the form creator. So this needs to be something that is very descriptive so that when you're looking at it, notice over here on the right-hand side where it has student names, and this is highlighted up here, student names. That's so you can go find it. So it's easy to identify. The tooltip is what will be read by the screen reader, but it's also what will display to sighted users if they hover their mouse over top of the form field. So it is important. So student name may be fine for here, or you may want to put write your full name or place your first and last name, just whatever makes sense for your form here. Now, for the text field, which is the student name is a text field, under the Options tab, you have different formatting options. You can align your text. You can do the left, center, right. You can't put a default value, but use that sparingly. Really decide if you do need a default value or not. You also have the option of checking spelling, multi-line, scrolling along text. I recommend a lot of times unchecking the check spelling because it's annoying when somebody has a unique name. Do be careful with that. Multi-line for simple entries, you're not going to need that, but if you have something where somebody needs to enter a comment or something, you might want to check that multi-line. Scrolling long text, that also it would be useful if you feel like it's going to be longer than what you have available for the in the screen here. The nice thing about the text here is you can limit the number of characters, and this could be helpful for like a name. A name might not go over so many characters, maybe like 30. Same thing with phone numbers or date of birth or something. You can restrict the number of characters that somebody can enter. And then on the format, here is where you can change it to where you can restrict it to be in a number, percentage, date, or time, or some other special character if you want to. Next is a checkbox. All right, so here they did add a checkbox for own, rent, and other. Obviously, you can't do both at one residence. So a checkbox doesn't make sense, but since it is here, let's go over how you can edit the checkbox. Because a checkbox is one where they can select multiple. Remember, the radio button is for one option, checkbox is for multiple options. So to edit, again, double click to bring up the properties box. Here, the name is the name I will see in the form fields. The tooltip is, let's say, select if you own your residence. And then for the options, nice thing about the options is you have different options. You can change if you want it to look like a star, you can change it to a check mark. You have the option of controlling what the box will look like when somebody selects it. Leave the export value alone. You can check the box by default if you want. For the most part, it probably doesn't make sense. Radio button, let's go back to the radio button. Radio button, again, I'm going to double click. This one is cautionary. When you name the group, you want it to name something that makes sense for you. This is, what was it about? U.S. citizen? I'll put citizenship. Okay. The tooltip will be the same for all options. So you don't want to put like yes or no in here. You want to put like, are you a citizen? And then we'll go over to the options tab. Again, you can choose what you want it to look like. For this one, I'm going to leave it as a circle. The radio button choice, this is where you would put the yes. And this is what the screen reader would hear. We need to do this again for all buttons. And notice over here on the right, notice when I called this yes one citizen, it pulled that second one out of a group. Because in order for them to be associated together, they have to have the same name. But now that this says group one, Acrobat is looking at this as a whole nother group. So the name has to be exactly the same. So here I will name it citizen. Now notice when I hit tab, it automatically populated the tooltip that it already had for citizen when I did it on the yes. This will always happen. If I would change it here, it would automatically change it in all locations for citizen. So if I wanted to add, or permanent residence. Now when I would open up the yes, it would say that as well. So keep that in mind with the tooltip for radio buttons. It is the same for all. All right. Options, again, same thing that we had on the other one. I'm going to leave it as a circle, but again, the radio button choice needs to be what this choice is. This one is no. Hit close. And again, over here in the fields, the navigation pane here, they're always nested. And that's a good way to check to make sure that all your choices are together that need to be together. So for example, for the citizen, I know I have to have a yes and no, and I can look over here on the fields and see that it is yes and no. A drop-down list. Again, we need to make them descriptive. Let's see, where would be a good place for a drop-down? How about here for the months? All right, so for the months here, it is currently a text field, and I'm going to change it into a drop-down because I just want them to choose from 1 through 12. Drop-down, there's my drop-down. Again, I just select the drop-down. I go to where I want to place it, and I click once. Notice it's still active, but I want to get out of it, so I just double-click on the pointer. The little circles at the ends of the rectangle there, I can just drag it to whatever size I would like. Now I'm going to double click to go into my properties. Obviously, name drop down to is not a nice name, so I'm going to call this months. And for the tooltip, I'll say number of months at this address. Select the options pane, or excuse me, the options tab. With the drop down, the first option should always be telling the user to select an option. It seems kind of redundant, but it's the only way the user will actually know that they're supposed to select something. This is what is displayed on the form field so that it doesn't automatically put a certain choice in to seem like that what needs to be choice. It actually forces the user to select an option. And this is for the sighted user as well as for a screen reader user. But for the item, you just type in whatever text you want and then just select add. So I'm going to put 1, 2, whoops, 33, not 33, which is okay. I need 3. Let's try that again. 4. All right. Okay, so obviously I messed up on this 33. There's not a month 33. So if I select it, I can just delete. You can also move choices up and down if need be. And notice that there's one choice that's always highlighted. This is what's going to be displayed on the form. So you want to make sure you come back after you've added everything and ordered everything you want and have the first one select an option as selected so that is what will display to the sighted users and is what's read first to the screen reader users. Okay. There's no reason, to check the spelling. You can sort items if you want. If you do sort items, just keep in mind that you're probably going to have to move the select an option back up to the top and then close. The next type is the digital signature. If you remember when we created this form, it had that box where you could select if there was a digital signature, and we didn't check it. But notice down here at the bottom, it actually found a spot and said, hey, I think this is a signature. It is. So it will find and create spots for signatures without checking that box. So don't worry about that. And if it doesn't, you always do have the option of adding a digital signature. Okay, now with the signature, again, it needs to be a unique name. Some forms will have multiple signatures on it. If it has multiple signatures on it, it's really important that it is descriptive as to who is signing there. So for this one, it's the student's signature, and the tooltip is student signature. This is fine. If you want to put something else, that's fine. Whatever works for you. You can change the appearance on any of these if you want. For the most part, I would say the default is fine. Under the signed, you probably want to just leave this alone, although there are other options. If you leave nothing happens when signed, that means nothing happens when signed. Sometimes you may want to mark things as read only, but do use that sparingly if you do decide to do that. So my recommendation is just to leave it alone and just leave it, nothing happens when signed. Working in the form fields is a little bit more challenging than just adding them. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And it is a lot of going in there and looking at the different options. The two key things to remember is make sure the name is unique and it makes sense. And also the tooltip is there to help the user. And one of the things that I use, and I do recommend you using too for the tooltip, is think about it as if you couldn't see that form field, what information do you need to know to make sure you can accurately complete it? So use that to help you guide as to what you want to include in the tooltip. All right, now we'll assume that we did all of our form fields, everything is good to go. So now the next part is you want to check. There's a couple different ways to check. One way is right here in this fields pane here. And if you select the first one, if you notice up here on the top, expand this a little bit more so you can see, you notice that it highlighted the form field on the document pane here in the field or in the form itself. If you just use your arrow keys going down here, this will show you the order everything is going. And this would be the tab order for the end user. I find this helpful just because it's easier just to hit your down arrow and I'm right here in the edit mode. So if I have to change something, it's a little bit easier. So all I have to do is, arrow down to make sure everything is going logically. And then notice that when I got to the length of time at this address, it skipped over the months and went straight to own. This is because, remember, we added that drop down in and now it puts it at the very bottom. So now it's out of sequence. Okay, so when that happens, and here it is. So if you select the form field in the document, notice it automatically highlighted it in the field. It goes both ways. So if I would select this date of birth, it would select it over here. This can be very helpful when you're trying to find stuff, especially if things are really messed up or if you have a lot of form fields. So here I just selected this drop down. I found it here down at the bottom of my fields. And now I know it needs to go back up here after the street address. Here's the street address. Well, excuse me, not the street address. Length of time at this address and before own. So now with my months, all I have to do is click it and drag it up. And notice that little bar that tells me it's going right in between those two fields. And then I let go and it should be in the correct order now. So now I'm going to go and arrow down again. And notice now when I get to length of time, next it does go to the months and then it goes to the own. And again, I can just continue on through. That's one of the reasons why I like to start on this, this view first. But it kind of depends on your comfort level as to where you want to start. Okay, another place that you can go is down here on the lower left within the prepare a form field and just select preview. And now I can tab through everything. And it is good to down arrow into interactives just to make sure that they're working correctly. Here I selected the rent and so forth. When you're done testing in this mode, if you select exit, it takes you right back into Forms view. So that is one of the advantages of this particular view. And then the final way that you can test is if you X out of prepare a form field, you can just do it from this view as well. And again, I can just tab through and I can check different things and so forth. So a quick recap. You want to use the prepare a form tool to auto-generate the form fields. You want to delete and manually add any needed form fields. Do check the ones that it auto-generated because as you saw, it can sometimes, it does its best to figure them out, but one, it will miss some, and two, it could get them wrong. So you want to always double check that and add them in. And it's always easier to add all the fields in first and then do your editing afterwards. All right, you want to give each form field a unique name and descriptive tool. At the very least, this is what you want to focus on because that unique name is to help you when you're working with the form. And the descriptive tool is what the assistive technology needs in order to be able to read what that form field does. You want to update the options when appropriate, and you always want to check the tab order and make any adjustments.
Should you start in Word or Acrobat?
That was a good question, Jennifer. It is highly recommended to start in Word. And the reason why is because it's a whole lot easier to like get those headings in there, the paragraph format. And if you are creating something in Word first, if you, like in this form here, it had those blank lines, you can do that in Word and you don't have to worry about that technically being accessible in Word, because when you export it into a PDF, your whole goal when you're exporting it to the PDF is so that you're trying to format it in Word so that PDF knows where all your form fields are going to be and can auto detect them and put them in there for you. And so that's one of the reasons, you know, with the formatting in Word. And it is a whole lot easier to work in Word versus trying to edit all this stuff in PDF. You can, but if you have the Word document, it is best to start there. If you have a really complex form and you just aren't sure where to go, send it to me so we can talk about it and I can give you directions as to what my recommendation would be, because yeah, it just kind of it depends, because I've seen some PDF forms where I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad, you know, but I've seen some other ones where I'm like, oh, yeah, thank goodness that's a TBR form, because yeah, we get to send that one back because it's not good. So yeah, definitely reach out.